Let me begin by commenting on a few things that our chief raised when he spoke. We all know we're in the campaign season, and so far I've been through 5 regions, and in every region the major complaint is about the road network. And so it makes me wonder that if a government claims that it has built more roads than any other government in the history of Ghana, and actually claims that it has built more than 12,000 kilometers of roads, then I wonder why every part of Ghana is complaining about roads. I remember in government, because of hosting the oil infrastructure here in Nzimaland, Professor Mills promised that we're going to invest some of the oil revenue to improve the social and economic infrastructure in Nzima area. And so we came with the oil and gas enclave roads, and we started to tackle all the roads in the Nzima area. It is just unfortunate that we did not finish before we left office, and a new government took over. And my understanding is that most of those roads have been abandoned, and the whole oil and gas enclave road project has been stopped. Nana Awolaimo, I want to assure you that a new NDC government that will come in January next year will resume the oil and gas enclave roads so that you can have roads that are befitting of an area that is hosting a very precious asset on behalf of the people of Ghana. And so you can be sure that the roads that you mentioned are roads that we will consider a priority. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm deeply honored to be standing here on this hallowed land of Nkrofo, the birthplace of a visionary leader, the nation's first president, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, who shaped not only the history of Ghana, but the destiny of Africa. Today is a day that every Ghanaian must celebrate and reflect upon. Indeed, on 6th March, the hallowed declaration he made at the old polo ground, and I quote, "At long last, the battle has ended, and Ghana, your beloved country, is free forever." That declaration was an earth-shaking event and marked the beginning of decolonization in the world as we know it today. And so in joining hands today to celebrate the enduring legacy and the vision of this remarkable figure, we are reminded of the enduring transformative impact he had on our continent and the lessons that still resonate with us today. The man, Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah, was a man of unparalleled vision. When he declared that the independence of Ghana is meaningless unless it is linked up with the total liberation of the African continent, many people did not understand why he would say this. But he was not only merely speaking for Ghana, he was speaking for the whole of Africa. His vision was a bold one. He dreamt of an Africa that was united in its political, economic, and social liberation. This is a vision we're still struggling to fulfill up to date, even half a century after he passed on. But Nkrumah's greatness wasn't in the ideals he held alone. It was in the tangible progress he made towards realizing those ideals. Under his leadership, Ghana became the first African nation to gain independence from colonial rule south of the Sahara. And Ghana became the black star of hope for other African nations. After independence, Ghana became the headquarters of the African liberation movement. Freedom fighters from all over Africa were given refuge in Ghana, and they carried Ghanaian diplomatic passports in order to avoid getting arrested when they traveled internationally. Dr. Kwame Nkrumah initiated a program of industrialization and infrastructure development that laid the foundation for what is today modern Ghana. He built factories, and my brother Kofi Boa listed many of them. He built roads, he built educational institutions, and a lot of the economic and social infrastructure that Ghana has today. And indeed, the iconic Akosombo Dam, which still produces almost 30% of Ghana's power, is a testament to the vision of the man Kwame Nkrumah. These are some of the things that Osagyefo was celebrated for. And these infrastructure developments were not just symbols of a nation on the rise, but of Kwame Nkrumah's commitment to Ghana's economic independence. Nkrumah's legacy extends far beyond only infrastructure. His ideals of African unity, social justice, and economic independence are still pillars that guide progressive forces and thought across the African continent. All over Africa, Kwame Nkrumah is included in the educational curriculum of schools in African countries for the study of African history. Decolonization is recognized as one of the momentous events of the 20th century, and this is why Kwame Nkrumah was named as the African of the Millennium by the BBC. When you have identified as a Ghanaian, it is very common to have the name of Kwame Nkrumah mentioned when you travel anywhere in Africa. If you say, I come from Ghana, most likely the first name they will mention is, oh, Kwame Nkrumah's Ghana. This always fills me with a sense of pride when I travel anywhere in the continent. Today we are reminded with deep sadness that the work Nkrumah started is not completed. The future Nkrumah envisioned, a prosperous, united Africa free from exploitation, still calls progressives across this continent to action. The liberation struggle is not over yet. But the question is, what happened? What or who truncated the vision and set us back this way? Before we can fully embrace the vision of Osagyefo, we must first dispel the divisive and needless debate that have recently intensified to try to obliterate his legacy. There are those who seek to dilute Nkrumah's role in our history as the nation's founder by introducing the idea of a Big Six. Let me be clear and unequivocal here. While many far beyond the Big Six being bandied around played significant roles in the independence struggle, Nkrumah was that critical catalyst that brought the struggle to a head and eventually resulted in the historic liberation of Ghana from colonial domination. The so-called Big Six were an accident of history and not a united force. And the historical record shows this. In fact, some of them actively opposed Nkrumah's vision for a rapid move towards independence. Ladies and gentlemen, indeed, at the time the struggle for independence had crystallized, the UGCC, which was the party of the Big Six, was opposed to the granting of independence by Britain. And this is a historical fact. At the time, Britain was getting ready to give Ghana independence, the UGCC, which was the party formed by the Big Six, opposed independence. They actually sent a delegation to Britain to present a petition to Queen Elizabeth not to grant independence to Ghana. How can such a reactionary movement now claim the collective honor as being founders of our nation? Indeed, on 7th August 1956, the UP, which is known as the United Party, which is a successor of the UGCC, opposed and walked out of Parliament when Dr. Kwame Nkrumah was moving the motion of destiny, which was the declaration of Ghana's independence. On 7th August 1956, Kwame Nkrumah was Prime Minister, and he was moving the motion for full independence for Ghana, and the United Party, which was a successor of the UGCC, walked out of Parliament because they said they didn't want to be part of the Declaration of Independence. And so how can people turn around now and say that they collectively were founders of this nation, Ghana? This false equivalence, by elevating figures whose contributions, while important, did not match the transformational and radical leadership that Nkrumah offered for Ghana's liberation, must be rejected outright. The hatred and bitterness harbored by those who disliked and hated Nkrumah still erupts from time to time, as exemplified in the recent outrage that was expressed by the whole nation at the description of Kwame Nkrumah in the derogatory term of "that's your Kwame Nkrumah." Sam Kwame Nkrumah no. Mr. Chairman, Nana Chairman, my brothers and sisters, history cannot be revised. No matter how you fill our children's textbooks with different versions of your history, Founders Day must be a day that recognizes Nkrumah, the leader who delivered independence to Ghana and whose vision was continental in scope. The next NDC government, inshallah, in January 2025, will seek to remove the distortions in our history and restore Kwame Nkrumah to his rightful place in the history of Ghana. I commend the people of Nzimaland and Nkrofo for instituting this annual celebration in honor of the greatest African. To celebrate this great man, the next NDC government will recognize this festival, titled Journey to Nkrofo, let me take that again. To celebrate this great man, the next NDC government will recognize this festival with the title The Journey to Nkrofo as one of the official events on Ghana's tourism calendar. This festival will become a Pan-African pilgrimage for progressives from all over the world to visit the birthplace of Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Osagyefo's vision for Africa was clear. He saw a continent united politically and economically, one leveraging its resources for the benefit of its people. His call for Pan-Africanism was not just a rallying cry, but a blueprint for the future. In his eyes, political independence without economic freedom was superficial. He advocated for industrialization, education, and scientific advancement as the keys to African development. Today, the African Continental Free Trade Area stands as a testament to Kwame Nkrumah's foresight. Though we are still in its early stages, the seeds that he planted so many decades ago are beginning to finally bear fruit. It may be happening 60 years later, but this is an indication of the profundity of the man's vision. We must therefore continue to nurture these ideals of Dr. Nkrumah of working towards a future where African nations will trade freely amongst themselves with their own currency, pool their resources together, integrate among themselves as countries without borders that allow their people and goods to move freely without hindrance and stand tall on the global stage. Being someone who could see ahead, he also warned us of the dangers of neocolonialism. We must remain vigilant and ensure that Africa's resources serve the needs of its people and not external powers. It was in tribute to the progressive ideas of Kwame Nkrumah that when I was president, I introduced the Visa on Arrival scheme for all Africans holding African passports arriving in Ghana, and also encouraged the return of Africans in the diaspora to come and settle at home. We must revive Nkrumah's vision in every aspect of our national life. And this means we must prioritize education, industrialization, and scientific research. It also means that we must tackle the environmental degradation that threatens our future, the reckless exploitation of our forests, reserves, and by some selfish persons for their own gain. We must work to make this cease immediately. We need to commit ourselves to the cause of Ghana, not just in words, but in action. As we stand on this holy ground of Nkrofo, let us recommit ourselves to the ideals Dr. Kwame Nkrumah held. And let us build a Ghana and an Africa that truly reflects his dream of equality, unity, and prosperity for all. The dictum, and I quote, Kwame Nkrumah never dies, was taken literally by his enemies to mean that Kwame Nkrumah was laying claim to immortality. But 150 years after he was born, his mortal body may have gone, but his legacy and his memory continue to live on. Indeed, Kwame Nkrumah never dies, and long may his legacy live. Long live Nzimaland, long live Ghana, and may God make our nation great and strong. Thank you very much.
Let's continue to illuminate our path forward. The celebration is to essentially pay homage to a man who means so much to the collective identity of us as Ghanaians. As a grandson of Nkrumah's core loyalist, J.B. Anoma, who was then the district commissioner from Nkrumah's home district, Zima, I am reminded on occasions like this that I walk in the shadows of great giants and deeply understand what it means to serve my people with excellence. We must ask the question, why must Ghanaians journey to Nkrofo to celebrate the Osajefo? I'll give you a few reasons why, and I'll start with independence. We celebrate him because he spearheaded Ghana's independent movement that transformed the Gold Coast into modern Ghana in 1957, making Ghana the first sub-Saharan African nation to gain its independence. His tireless efforts ignited the flame of liberation movements across the African continent. As Africans, we celebrate him because his crusade for Pan-Africanism played a pivotal role in the formation of the Organization of the African Union, now the AU. We celebrate him because of the foundation he laid in the educational sector. We celebrate him because as early as 1961, he introduced the free education for primary and middle schools, ensuring accessibility for all. His free senior high school policy had no red or green light. In fact, it was free flow for everybody. His legacy in the education sector has the long list, including the Kwame Nkrumah University of Science and Technology, the University of Cape Coast, the Jumaku School of Languages, and a long list of secondary schools across the country. We celebrate Nkrumah because of the training colleges that he established at Atebubu, Berekum, Fosu, Enchi, and so many others. We celebrate Nkrumah because of the legacy he left on industrialization. Think about this. The Akosombo Textiles, Takrady Flour Mill, Tema Oil Refinery, Kumasi Shoe Factory, Vaku, Abosu Glass Factory, Zwarugu Meat Factory, Palugu Tomato Factory, Commander Sugar Factory, Kumasi Jute Factory, Insawam Cannery, Brake and Tire Factory, Temabosa Tire Factory. I mean, it will take me the whole day. This is the man that spent 9 years as president. In the health sector, we celebrate him because he made significant contributions in the health sector. Think about it. Konfuanochi Teaching Hospital transformed Kolebu into the full-fledged teaching hospital that we now know. The Ghana Medical School, and hundreds of facilities across the country. We celebrate him because even after 52 years after his sad death on another man's land, ladies and gentlemen, we cannot honestly in 2024 survive as a country without the Osagyefo's legacy. Can you imagine Ghana today without the Akosombo Dam? Think about it. Can you imagine Ghana today without the Temahaba? Think about it. Can you imagine Ghana today without that motorway that makes every business possible? Can you imagine Ghana today without the Accra International Airport, now Kotoka International Airport? Can you imagine Ghana today without the essential institutions that Nkrumah established? When you live here, think about it. Can you imagine Ghana without Ghana Cocoa Board, Bank of Ghana, SNET, Ghana Commercial Bank, Agriculture Development Bank, Temawa Refinery, and so many? Want to know why we need to celebrate him? We celebrate him not only for his remarkable achievement, but also because he is the only president in Africa's history who documented his vision and laid out a roadmap for economic emancipation. As we reflect on Dr. Kwame Nkrumah's legacy, we recognize his vision and contributions and note that they remain profoundly relevant today. Dr. Nkrumah's call for Africa unity is more critical today than 52 years ago. His focus on economic empowerment continues. Many of the microeconomic policies that Dr. Nkrumah championed are now being adopted by Europe, reflecting on the foresight of his vision. Think about these initiatives. African Common Currency. It's been adopted by the European Union. Unified foreign policy. A collaborative military forces echo the very principles that he advocated for. As we commemorate his 115th birthday, let us remember that his impact transcends time and borders. He was the leader who dared to dream of a better world. And it is our duty to keep that dream alive. The legacies of Osagyefo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah are immortal, etched in the annals of history. He has left unforgettable footprints on the sands of time, and it is our responsibility to ensure that this vision continues. As I leave you, let's remember his last words. And I start the quote. As far as I'm concerned, I am in the knowledge that death can never extinguish the torch which I have lit in Ghana and Africa. Long after I'm dead and gone, the light will continue to burn and be borne aloft, giving light and guidance to all people. Unquote. We stand here as a living testimony to the truth of his words. Indeed, Kwame Nkrumah never dies. Together, let us ensure that his legacy endures, inspiring generations to come. Long may the spirit of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah live on. Long live Nzima, long live Ghana, and long live Africa.
Alambla nyame achira yen. Nyame aye kese. Se wo hwe papa we de sina ni so a. Em se last ye kwa akra me kan. Se ansha nyame ebedum Nzima another Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah. Mimi who said, baby a panadru no, a bedra be a elambele ha. Baby a wadru no, I'm Samapano wa bro elambele. Yenina yen fan paibo. Enter papanechi. Anapay, I am a nije. Sir, Yabeshem wa habio. I fear chairmono. Yamiadom, na ya oha. Yehu de si ye. Em se enen so a chain a fear chairmono. Se wo hwe nananom. Wo hwe omanfo. Ene ni petitru a abedi ene jimede ase a. E kire se ampa. Ye koyanim. E kire se ampa. Nkrofumai. Enzimamai. Ye koyanim. But ye koyanim no. Obebi say is everything going on well for us? His Excellency, I don't think everything is going on well for us. I wish that you and your team would have passed through the road from Telekubukazo to Enyinasie, from Samenye to Hafasni. Last 3 days, I passed through that road and I was asking myself, is Nzima really part of Ghana? Now, this is a district which possesses our oil, but the road network linking Samenye to Hafasni is in a deplorable state. Now, the road network from Telekubukazo to Takwa Junction is in deplorable state. His Excellency, we are appealing to you. Nzima deserve better. We deserve better. We need good roads. We need hospitals. As I'm talking to you, Nkrofo as the birthplace of Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah cannot boast of a modern hospital. Don't we deserve a modern hospital? Don't we deserve a modern hospital in Nkrofo? Would you deserve a modern hospital? Because this man has really fought very hard for our independence. And he's the reason why we are here today. But we cannot boast of anything monumental in this community. We don't have potable water. We don't have good hospital. What we have can be described as a cheap compound. His Excellency, we want to convey a message to you. If Ghanaians give you the nod, this is our appeal. Nkrofo needs a modern hospital. Nothing else. Nothing else. I'm stressing. Nothing else. This is the cry of the community of Nkrofo. And we want you to face